Trey Gowdy, it is such an honor and a privilege to have you as a friend. And today you have some exciting news. You were already a #1 New York Times bestselling author, and you have now written a fictional novel called The Color of Death. I read it, and what a gripping, fascinating, insightful tale. But what struck me the most about it, and I think readers will find this part of particular interest, is that you dive so deep into the mind and the role and the burden that is a privilege to bear of a prosecutor as they manage attempting to find some semblance of justice while also managing their own grief and the grief of families and communities around them. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about what that was like for you as you drew from your personal experience into The Color of Death?
Well, first of all, thank you for reading it, and you have the gift of encouragement. I do not, but you do have it, so thank you for the nice things you said, Emily. As you know, because you and I have discussed it, this has been 10 years in the making. I literally would be sitting either in church or somewhere, and my mind would wander. If I ever wrote a fiction book, I want people to know the role that prosecutors really play, juxtaposed with the one that the media portrays. I also want people to know, I think they already have an inkling, but I want them to have a firsthand account of what being surrounded by depravity and malice and awfulness does to the people that live it. And, you know, I think we get the proportions out of whack when it's all you see, you think it's all that exists. And literally, you finish one murder trial and you go pick up another file that may involve homicide by child abuse or a sexual assault, and it just gets the proportions of life out of whack. So I wanted to fictionalize it. You're an expert on true crime. I actually can't watch true crime. I have to fictionalize it because it weighs too heavy on me if I think it really happened. But I do want them to know the journey really exists. And prosecutors are involved from the moment the crime happens. We don't show up on jury selection morning. You know that. But the media gets it wrong. I mean, they have us kind of showing up, grabbing a file, no real conversations with the cops. It's almost antagonistic with the cops. And that is not real life. So I wanted this to be real.
And I have to correct everyone. I'm grateful for your confidence in me. I'm no expert, but what I am an expert in is being a reader, because you know I love books. And one thing that you drew it out of me that I confess, and I know you viewers will feel the same way or experience the same thing. You talked about the journey, and it was like a unpredictable, twists and turns, while again being on this layer of beautiful language and insightful psychology that oftentimes mysteries and detective thrillers and legal thrillers don't have. So this novel is so engaging and particularly rewarding and rich in those ways that as you're like, oh, it's this person that did it. Oh no, it's gotta be this person. Oh wait, it's this person. And then you continue on that journey until finally learning who it is, and you will be utterly as shocked as I was, everyone. But talk to us about writing those pivots, and as we talk about this mirroring your real life experience, because as it said, truth is often stranger than fiction.
There are so many ups and downs in a homicide investigation, and you get your hopes up that you think you have a solid lead. I mean, you really, really want to do a good job for the parents if it's a lost child, for the children if a parent has been killed. I mean, every type of homicide you can imagine, unfortunately, I have experienced. And you really, really want to do a good job. But the ebbs and the flows of thinking we have the right person and then the DNA doesn't come back, or there's exculpatory evidence. Kind of the spine or the backbone of this book was a case I really prosecuted. This is fiction, but the spine of it, the outline of it, that case, Emily, went unsolved for a decade. For 10 years, that young woman's parents and children, so on both sides of the grief spectrum, were waiting for law enforcement and prosecutors to find the right person. And then, as you know, finding the right person is not even half the battle. You got to get from arrest to conviction. I remember loading up our car with boxes for what my wife calls family vacation. And she saw me putting the boxes in the car, and she's such a sweet person. She just shook her head because she knew that I never touched the sand that week at the beach. I sat on the porch poring over all the leads over that decade because I knew the defense attorneys would kind of point the jury towards these leads. It could have been this person, or you looked at this person at one point, and all of that could be reasonable doubt. And I distinctly remember looking at this one photograph because we had to explain there was hair found on her body that did not match the defendant's. So we had to explain how that hair got there. And I remember having that epiphany of this is what I can convince a jury of. And I called my co-prosecutors and said, I think we can get around the hair, but you live it. I mean, the people that say, well, I was able to leave my job at work, I don't take it home with me, I could never do that. I never could do it. My mind was always focused on the next trial. I had, 100 of them, probably more than 100 of them. And that, I mean, that doesn't include the guilty pleas. That doesn't include the ones that got worked out. These are actually jury trials, and you got to convince 12 people, and you got to do it beyond a reasonable doubt. And in death penalty cases, you have to do it twice. So it was a labor of love to write the book. It was my favorite job of all, but you can't do it forever because it takes a toll on your soul and it has an impact on your faith, which is why my wife wanted me to put some light in this book. And there is light. In fact, the character is really modeled after my wife because she's a nonstop source of encouragement and hope. She does not have a malicious bone in her body. So opposites really do attract. You have an angel, and then you have my twisted mind. And, we managed to live together for 36 years. But even the darkest places need light. And so there is some light in this book.
I think I speak for everyone when I say you do not have a twisted mind. Your discussion about the all-encompassing nature of your work, to me, really underscores the ministry of community. And that's what I see in you, and I think reflected in your characters as well in The Color of Death, Trey, that when you take it so seriously, when it's a calling to work in the criminal justice system and to attempt to secure justice in whatever form that looks like, that's ministry. And digging into the character that you just mentioned, I felt strongly this ministry of community that was happening in your book. So can you talk to us and describe a little bit more about that particular dynamic and about perhaps the revelation that the viewers have to look forward to as well about her?
Well, again, I mean, everything is kind of rooted in our own personal experience. It's fiction, but I really had a case where this beautiful 19-year-old African-American female had been strangled to death. And her father walked into my office and would not even sit down. He said, there is no way that a white man is going to value my daughter's life. And he turned up, walked out the door. And I was getting ready to assign that case to a really good prosecutor in my office. And I said, you know what? I'm going to keep that one. And I kept it, and we worked on it, and we took Jeremy Knight to trial, and he was convicted. And now every time I see that man in my hometown, we hug each other. So you talk about a community that is bridging a racial gap. And there's so much division in our culture, so much polarization, but grief is unifying, and justice is unifying. I never ask a crime victim about politics, and they never asked me. They never said, well, you run as a Republican. All they wanted was, can you help me get justice? No sex assault victim ever asked me about politics. I had a young woman who was raped over the course of 6 hours and became pregnant as a result of the rape. We never had a political conversation. It was always, how can I protect you when you testify? How can I, even where I'm going to position myself, where you don't have to look at these two defendants? It's to that level of granularity that, I mean, you become, I don't want to say obsessed, but you do become obsessed with being, that is their only shot at justice. As you know, you don't get like multiple swings at the piñata. And I was so careful to want to protect the victims, not to re-victimize them, and for them to be able to see whatever this awful man did to them, they thought the man had power. That night, the man had the power. I want you to see him led out of the courtroom in handcuffs and shackles for the rest of his life. So you know that you have the power now. Now, there's no closure. You're never going to get over that night. But your last memory of him is going to be led out of a courtroom in leg irons and shackles. And then you go on and live the very best life you can.
And describe for listeners about the title, The Color of Death. What does that mean?
The color of death. I think, unfortunately, you can see the life go out of living creatures' eyes after a certain amount of time. And, you know, this prosecutor, if you go to the crime scene, I was actually talking to my wife as she was driving me to the airport to come up to New York, because the whole town is a series of crime scenes to me. I mean, I'd pass this road and I think about this homicide. There was a bank, 3 people were killed who just happened to be inside the bank. They were executed. And I got to the crime scene very shortly after the crime, and you literally see just the life that is bled out, that is out of these people. And the color of death, if you're wondering, is opaque. It is colorless. It is lifeless. And when you see it, you never get over that. I mean, you cannot unsee the crime scenes. So when you close your eyes, when you close the file, when you move on, when the appeals are over, the one thing you can never get out of your mind are the crime scene photos. So the color of death is opaque. It is lifeless. It is colorless. There's also a character in this book that has a lifeless eye. And so it's kind of a play on that. He's a bad guy. And he's a bad guy in books to come, if there are books to come. But there is no color to death. It's just lifeless.
And final question, Trey, what do you hope that readers will take away after reading The Color of Death?
Sensitivity to crime victims and their families, and the knowledge that the media really doesn't get it right. It may be entertaining, but it's not right. Prosecutors don't show up the morning of jury selection or the morning of trial. There is this really unique bond between cops and prosecutors, which I hope came through in the book. And there is a unique bond between victims and prosecutors. I still, literally last week, a lady was drawing blood, and she asked me, "Are you still the district attorney?" I haven't been the DA in 15 years, Emily. But to her, I was the DA. And I didn't ask her, but something in her voice led me to believe that she had a family member that was victimized. And so she didn't see a Republican congressman. She didn't see anything political. She said, "I'm drawing the blood of a man who helped my family." And that's really what I want to be remembered for, as being a prosecutor, nothing else.
Well, I have no doubt that you will. An incredible prosecutor. You will also be remembered as an incredible author. Trey Gowdy, author of The Color of Death, already a #1 New York Times bestselling author. And guys, take it from me, since I have had the privilege of reading this, that when you pick it up, which you will, block out the whole afternoon, block out the whole evening, because you'll have to read it in one sitting, like I did also. It's definitely a page turner and really an incredible, incredible piece of art that indeed mimics life. So thank you again, Trey Gowdy.
Thank you, Emily Compagno. Thank you.